is Chris Pothier, and I'm the host of The Lives of the Artists. In this interview you're going to hear, I sit down with Jen Brown. She's a narrative oil painter from Toronto, Canada, and she now lives in Portland, Oregon. She's a really incredible painter. She's going to tell us about her background and how she got started in the world of fine art. I think you're really going to like this interview. So I wanted to ask you, so where did you grow up anyway?
I grew up in a small town called Orangeville in Ontario, Canada. It's about 25,000 people, or it was back then, but now it's probably 30 or 35,000. It's just outside of Toronto.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And were you exposed to art at all as a youngster?
I think I always had like a propensity for drawing, and then when I was in high school I really wanted to be an architect because I liked designing things. But then I went to U of Waterloo, and then I went to York University for my master's degree in art history. I mean, I always really liked Caravaggio. I still do. I mean, it's probably evident when you look at my work, but I really like the darkness and the realism of it. Like, it's almost like a photograph. It's amazing that he did that 500 years ago.
Yeah.
And I really like the drama of it, that Baroque, like, slap you over the head with this raw emotion and dramatic scene.
Yeah. So you went to college, you got a degree in art history, and then a master's degree in art history. And then you went, what'd you do after that?
I lived in Japan. I was unemployed.
Yeah. Shocker.
Yeah. So then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go travel then. And I moved to Japan and taught English there for 3 years. And traveled around Asia quite a lot. So I moved down to the southern Pacific coast of Mexico.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's where I met my husband, Matt.
So did you have any idea that someday you would be a painter?
No. No. I mean, I always liked creating art, and it was only when I was living in Japan and I was like, all right, I'm gonna dabble a little bit here and there, and then it slowly started to dawn on me that I should create the art I want to see in the world. So I wasn't really seeing it was a lot of abstract stuff and conceptual art, and just none of that really grabs me. So
did you see things in your head, and did you imagine things, images and thoughts?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've always done that. Imagined scenes that could be painted, but then say 10, 15 years ago I didn't have the skills to do that.
Yeah.
So it took years of practice to gain some of those skills, and I'm still learning every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So when was kind of the point you said, all right, I'm just going to do this, start doing this on my own? Was that in Japan?
No, that was in Mexico. So Matt and I got married, and I was working at the university, and it just sucked. It was awful.
What were you doing there?
I was actually the head of the language department at that point, and he said, I can work online, and we don't need that income, so why don't you quit? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get to work full-time painting now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you had to basically sort of create this on your own, right? Your education.
Yeah.
Your art education.
Yeah. I just sat down. I actually got pregnant though at that point, so it was a surprise. So then that got postponed for a couple more years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Now, so you had these ideas in your head, and you wanted to get them out, and you really had no way of doing that until you had the skills in order to do that, right? So basically those few years were just you trying to hone your skills in order to be able to create the things you want to create.
Yeah. And then I would do commissions to make some money.
So how did you, where was your first, where did you seek out that information? Did you, on books?
I have a book, But
Yeah, I think when I first met you, I was completely blown away that you were self-taught.
Oh, well, you can do it. It just takes diligence. Like you have to be really focused.
So now you're working on your own education as far as your studio practice. Right?
Uh-huh.
And you have these ideas that you want to get out of your head. And so then when did you start really tackling those ideas? Like when did you start implementing them into your practice?
I think I always did that, but I was doing more portraiture before. But then we moved to the States, and I was starting all over again.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really afraid to try new things. I'd say I did this painting called The Allegory of Facebook, where it's a bunch of people that are fighting in a bar. And it was the first time that I decided to get like a whole lot of models together all at once, which is kind of like, I'm kind of like a director, like a lot of moving parts there, and to do a photo reference shoot. And so I did it in a bar, and like, you know, some people didn't show up on time, and, or, you know.
So these friends of yours?
Yeah, I just paid them in alcohol. You know.
So was that your first like major sort of narrative piece with multiple characters?
Yeah, and it's pretty big side. Yeah, multiple characters.
So what were you trying to say with that piece?
Well, this was right around the 2016 election.
Yeah.
And I had seen so many people on Facebook fighting with one another, and you know, name calling and just really ugly stuff.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, and I heard stories about families who no longer talk to one another anymore because of their Facebook posts, and I thought that's crazy. What kind of division is that? You know. So
is that so now? Like, how do you, as an artist, how do you make something that's communicated to others, but also give the person some direction, but not a complete direction, so it's completely obvious, you know, so they can put their own thing to it? Like, that's a really tough thing to do.
Yeah, but it's a really great challenge. I mean, that's one of the hardest things to do. So I'm thinking about like how I feel about certain ideas, and then I figure that other people must feel the same way too. Or if I make some little puzzle, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know that feeling. You know, I can sense that, or I've been thinking that too for a long time. And I don't know, I think it's a good way to relate to people through stories, and if I can paint a story on a canvas that's not A and not B, like, but somewhere in the middle, like, I think that makes for something intellectually interesting too, and hopefully it has some kind of emotion in it that they can connect with as well.
All right, I wanted to ask you some questions about what you feel your role is as an artist to communicate with the audience, society, people in general.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like that's your role?
I do. I think we as artists are in a unique position to be able to communicate ideas, and some of them may be dissenting ideas. I think of it more as like ideas that people in society have in general, and that I'm able to communicate them in a visual way. So I think we're unique in that sense.
Like you're like a medium.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, writers do it with words, but we do it with visual imagery.
Exactly. So your goal is to sort of show a concept from your perspective.
Yeah.
It might help other people sort of see what that perspective is and what that concept is.
Maybe they see an issue or some idea in a new way they never thought of before, or maybe they connect with it and say, yeah, you know, I feel that same way too. Exactly. I think that as well.
Absolutely.
You know?
So in a way, it's kind of like, you know, I think that the idea of being a narrative painter is really about communication. It's about like community in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think of it as that we all need stories. Like everyone connects with stories, and when you hear a story, you know, you think about your own life, and if you've had that happen to you or something similar, or you can like, empathize or not empathize with someone's story. So I really find narrative art to be the most compelling because you don't have to think about things in the abstract. Like, anyone can connect with it. Anybody.
So describe narrative painting, and what does it specifically mean?
Well, it can be different things. I mean, narrative painting could be like various scenes in a single image, you know, kind of like how a comic book reads or something. There have been artists who have done that. Or it could be like if you could take a slice out of life, like a time still out of life, and that would just be an instant to explain a whole larger story, then, you know, that's a narrative painting as well.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about a painting that you did called The Allegory of Painting.
Uh-huh.
And it's a recent piece of yours.
Yep.
Like, tell me the story and the background to that piece.
Well, so the subject, the allegory of painting, has been one that's been painted for hundreds of years. And there was a 15th century Italian iconographer called Cesare Ripa, and he wrote this book that basically outlined what icons should be and represent, or what certain symbols should represent. Basically, he said the allegory of painting has to be a woman with wild hair, because she's in the act of painting, you know, just throwing paint around. And she has to have on a mask pendant and a colorful dress, and she must be gagged to show that painting is silent poetry.
Huh.
Yeah, which it is. It's silent poetry.
Absolutely,
It can be.
Yeah.
Because I had been thinking about painting a nude self-portrait.
Yeah.
And I talked to another artist friend of mine online, and she was like, don't do it. She had started one. I saw it. And I was like, it looks great, you know.
Yeah.
And she was like, don't do it. I'm changing mine now because I've had all these creepy guys on my social media making comments, and I just don't want that in my life. And so I really thought, like, wow, we're still, us women artists are limited as to what we can say.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
But I almost think that, like, you being clothed in that painting has a separate layer to it, you know what I mean? Like, so,
yeah.
I wonder if it would work the same if you painted yourself nude like that.
Well, in the background of that painting, there's actually like a drawing that has been started on the wall and then abandoned, you know.
Oh, interesting.
So it kind of shows like the thought process that I went through in order to end up at the final painting that I'm painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you see, let's talk about women artists, and talk about women painters, or where do you feel like women still, like you said earlier, there's still some reservations about certain subject matter. Do you feel like it's gotten better and will continue to progress?
Sure. Yeah, it definitely will. But there's still ways to go. Like, women's art sells for less than men's art. You know, if they're doing the same kind of work, and collectors buy women's work less than they buy men's art.
Oh, wow.
In art school, it's 70% women students.
Yeah.
And but when you get out into the gallery world, it's 70% male artists that are represented by galleries. Like, women only constitute 30%.
Wow.
So, yeah, the tables really flip for us when we get out of school. And it could be because of other, you know, like childbearing, child caring issues, or having to work to support a family, and like There's lots of reasons why.
Hey Jen, well, it was really nice to talk to you today.
It was good to talk to you too.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, anytime.
All right.
Thanks.